update on defense bills moving through Congress. The House just passed the authorization bill conference this week, last night, I believe. And the Democratic-controlled Congress has created a total sideshow by adding hate crimes legislation, keeping it in the conference report. They've been doing this, playing this game every year for a while now. It was always dropped in conference, but hey, you have a Democratic president, why not keep it in? And that's what they've done this year. And so now honestly, this is a total sideshow, and it's becoming destructive because you have members like Mike Pence and others in leadership in the House saying now they're going to vote against the conference report, and they did yesterday. So it obviously is going to still pass. It's still going to be signed into law, but this is what many members argued was basically a social policy rider on a funding bill for the military. And it's just not the right place. It didn't go through committee. It didn't have hearings, didn't have a public, airing, so to speak, and it's really the wrong piece of legislation for doing this. So that's what members are saying. I think the Senate is going to do the same thing. They're going to pass it. There's going to be some dissenting voices for the liberal social agenda rider on the bill, but nonetheless, the overall defense authorization bill is sailing through. I guess it won't be on the Senate floor till next week because they're in, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The appropriations bill passed the Senate Monday night, I believe, and it's now in conference. I expect we'll see that report in less than 2 weeks. And what does it all mean? I don't think we'll see any hate crimes legislation. Of course, that would be the wrong bill to attach it to as well. But the Senate was okay, but remember what came over in February from the president's budget. We're just in bad shape all around. Let's take missile defense, for example, a very high priority for all of us. It's about a $10 billion annual program, roughly speaking. Obama proposed cutting $1.6 billion this year alone. That's about 16 or 18% of that whole budget. He's pretty much going to get every dollar of that cut, and there was not a lot of pushback in Congress, so we're concerned. We're concerned not only about the fight this year, but what it means next year, because it is a stunning victory for the White House. The unprecedented level of defense cuts that will have gone through without much of a whimper from Congress, excluding certain members, as always, who are champions, in a time of war. Cutting so many defense programs during wartime is unprecedented, one, but two, giving the president about 98% of what he asked for is also unprecedented. Congress usually alters about 5 or 10% of the defense budget, and we're seeing blind loyalty here, and it's dangerous and destructive because we believe it's very short-sighted. We're waging a campaign of the present and gambling with the future, where we're assuming everything will be like today for the next 20 years and just projecting that forward, meaning specifically that our military will only be engaged in counterinsurgency operations. Sure, we absolutely could be, and we have to build up and fund that. But you need a robust Navy and Air Force. It's in the Army's best interest, and it's in the nation's best interest, and you need them not just to deter future enemies like the Secretary thinks, but we're wrong. We're always wrong about predicting the future here in America. I mean, let's be honest with each other. We're not good at it. And so when everyone is walking around with the certainty that I'm seeing in Washington, particularly from the Pentagon, it's very scary. We saw the end of history in the 90s, and look how that turned out. So just using missile defense, F-22, the list is long, but it's a dozen major programs. There are virtually no new starts in the Pentagon budget. We're not building anything for the next generation. We're just building a lot of legacy systems or recapitalizing those systems. So taking a truck back to 0 miles, for example, if it's been in Iraq for 5 years. That's important, and we have to do that, but you need next generation equipment so that the people who sign up in 5 years have the exact same technological advantage that our military enjoys today. We're ceding our military advantage. A lot of conservatives believe the president is unilaterally disarming. And if you look at the numbers, I don't have the 2011 budget, and once we do, we can certainly talk about a trend and a possible pattern, but all indicators are that this could be the case. So why I use missile defense as an example is that it's given a green light to the Pentagon, to the White House for more massive cuts next year. We saw this game in the 90s. We saw it in the 70s with President Carter. This is very, very dangerous, and without any pushback in Congress. Now, granted, conservatives, not Republicans, but conservatives are a small minority, so it's understandable why there isn't a lot, and there's so many fronts of this war. There's a million battles to fight in defense. you can't wage into every single one and win. But we're not winning any, frankly. I see 2011 as much, much worse and much uglier, and it will all be justified by the Secretary of Defense's quadrennial defense review. So at Heritage, and thanks to wonderful people like Laser and Senator Inhofe and Mr. Aiken, Mr. Thornberry, Mr. Forbes, and others on the House side, we pushed very hard for a national defense panel, an independent panel to counter the Gates QDR, which is really a rubber stamp. He basically told Congress it's a rubber stamp. He said, House and Senate, when they said, what can we expect in the QDR? He said, well, I'm telling him what to write, and it's based on the national defense strategy, and that's what I just told you, his prediction of the future. And that will be used as the analytical justification for the president's budget in February for 2011, which I believe could be a lot worse. This independent panel is quasi-independent, thanks to not just Senator Inhofe, but Senator Thune. Gates was going to have all 12 appointees. Now he gets 12 plus Congress gets 8. Thank heavens, but it's certainly not going to be enough to stop the bleeding. So this is where things stand. But I'll smile and tell you about the bad news because I really am depressed in general about defense, and I wish there were good news to report. I mean, there's a couple plus-ups here and there in the Senate approach bill, but nothing that's significant, nothing that's going to get those numbers back up for, like I said, the new starts and the next generation equipment. We're continuing to see the theme of the Air Force and the Navy as a bill payer, and I'm hearing rumors of the QDR. You know, next generation long-range strike bomber is the Air Force's top priority right now inside the building, and it's already being used as a bill payer for joint service projects, and it's over before it even begins. We don't even have a budget. I mean, they have a 2011 draft budget, but Congress doesn't even have it, and it's already being ransacked for other priorities, and this is what we saw with F-22, but now we're seeing it. Guess what? We don't have an F-22, so now we're going to cut JSF, and they're already doing that right now as part of this 2011 POM budget is you raid JSF so you can fund. But what they're doing, this is how it all starts, by the way, it's a slippery slope. They're raiding Air Force Joint Strike Fighter for Navy and Marine Corps to pay for theirs. It's just not enough money to go around. So, and then what we're going to see once that becomes sort of normal standard operating procedure, then we'll see JSF as a bill payer for just everything else, ships and trucks and tanks and everything else. So I'm open to questions. Like I said, sorry it's not all good news, but we have lots of friendly faces here. Apparently,
Mackenzie, can I ask you, one of the things that I know you all have been doing at Heritage that could conceivably be of real help here is this idea of the 4% petition. Can you give us a quick, status report on that and what you think you would like to do with the people that you've enlisted in that?
And I need your help. I need all of your help in the room. Quick overlay of what we did this year. For the 3 years I've been at Heritage after coming from the Hill, it became clear, obviously 2 years under a former president, 1 year under this president, it became very clear that about a year and a half ago, we were trying to build a bipartisan coalition. Conservatives, moderates, center left, even some liberals. We had people like Jim Marshall come over and speak. We wanted to build this broad coalition on defense, the need for a higher top line, because top line matters, because then everything else after that is just gravy. You can argue about missile defense, but if you don't have an offset in the defense budget that's big enough to fund everything you want to do, then you're just going to rob Peter to pay Paul. So we focus on the top line for a reason at Heritage, and we've been arguing for years the defense budget's inadequate for what the nation's asking the military to do, not what Mackenzie thinks the military needs to do. And the general liberal and conservative consensus, we've got Michael Hanlon on our side, which is unusual, is $50 billion annual modernization shortfall. If you make up that shortfall, it's roughly 4% of GDP. That's the defense budget we need just to do what the military is doing right now. We realized about a year and a half ago, conservatives were divided. And that's partly because of a couple of things, but one of them is the Secretary of Defense. He's a Republican appointee, but he's by no means a conservative. There's a misperception in the public mind that he speaks for conservatives when he speaks on defense. Conservatives are a house divided. Well, when you're a very small minority and you're divided, the ineffective level is just, I can't even describe it. So we realized that we need conservatives back on the same page. And didn't necessarily have to be, we don't have to agree on everything, but at least kind of back under one umbrella. What we did this year at Heritage was we launched a petition to increase the defense budget to 4% of GDP to make up for that shortfall, but we also launched Protect America Month. And it was to get people outside of Heritage to speak to conservative leaders. and build that base back up again. So we had former Governor Mitt Romney give a keynote, and we had former Speaker Gingrich, Frank was there, give keynote speeches. And then in between, we had a bunch of other things. We had a screening of our missile defense documentary. We had General Schwartz, member of the Joint Chiefs. We had a host of other events and products and papers and speeches and everything else. And we were starting to lay that groundwork. So as a result of that, we had a petition. It was basically to stop Obama's defense cuts. And we had 120,000 people sign it, which for Heritage petition, that's 5 times bigger than any other petition we've ever launched. And we weren't reaching Heritage members. These were people who have never affiliated with Heritage in the past. But what was significant about it was we have brand new members of Congress outside of our stalwarts like Inhofe on board now. So we had Eric Cantor as part of our video and guest blogging and speaking on the issue. Kay Bailey Hutchinson, never engaged on defense when I've been in Heritage, also a member of this. Down the line, I don't want to leave them out, but there are numerous other members that now are motivated on defense, and we're trying to also reach members not on defense committees, because we're not necessarily winning with the ones that are today because the numbers aren't big enough. We're going to do this again next year, but we need new people. I need new names, and I need new ideas, and I need new contacts. We can't do the 4% petition all over again. That one's over. So what's the next product? What's our next deliverable? And who are the leaders? Who are the conservative leaders that we want to call back in? So we had the Romney and the Gingrich, but who's next? Who are the potential rising stars, or who do they listen to? Who does Eric Cantor listen to? You know, that sort of thing. And we're also building up his leadership as well on the issue. We expect him to give a missile defense keynote at Heritage soon, along with Mr. McKeon, the new ranking member of House Armed Services, in January, before the president sends over his budget, but after the State of the Union, give a conservative defense agenda. And speaking for all, I hope, House conservatives. But I need your help. So this is just an open-ended question. I'm available online, on the phone, on email, and everything else, but I really want your ideas. This is somewhere in, this year we ran the Protect America Month from Memorial Day to Independence Day for obvious reasons, you know, symbolically. And we've archived and printed all the remarks and everything else, but we need to make this the go-to stop for any conservative on defense to brandish their credentials. We want them to stop and give a speech and tell us their vision for defense and for national security and for the military, and I'll need your help with that.